Me and my baby on the bus. Hello and welcome to HighSobriety podcast. I'm your host, Matt Busbridge, and today we are joined by Tallulah. Tallulah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Good. Thank you for coming on to the show.
No, thank you for having me.
Been sort of waiting to get you on because we got mutual friends, and that's how we started talking. And he was like, "You need to get Tallulah on. You need to get Tallulah on." I was like, "Okay, we'll get her on."
Yay!
But just tell like the viewers and the listeners a little bit about yourself, like your music background, and then we'll talk more about your sobriety.
So I am Tallulah Syron, and I started off as an artist many years ago now. Feels like a whole lifetime ago. And I now am a creative and a music publicist, and I run a radio show on Voices Radio, and I'm a mum.
Nice. Total package. What genre of music was you doing?
I was making like dance music.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of features and stuff. Yeah, I had like a shaved head. It was like a whole different time.
Well, should we just like a mishmash?
Yeah.
I used to have long hair,
really?
So there you go.
There we go, yeah.
Do that face mash up. So tell us a bit about your sobriety. How long have you been sober for? When did you decide to go sober? Why?
So I have been sober this August. It will be 4 years, which is so
Amazing.
Crazy. Like, it still feels like, I don't know, my whole concept of time is like weird anyway, but like I feel like I just can't believe that I've managed nearly 4 years. But yeah, so it was August 2020 that I first got sober. And it was one of those things that like for a really long time I knew that it was something I should do.
Yeah.
And I'd said to people, I'm going to do it, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to stop using, I'm going to be sober, but it never actually like came to it. And then it got to a point where everybody in my life, well, I mean, my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, my fiance at the time, my family were just kind of like done with my shit and done with like my behavior when I would drink. And I was like, okay, it's time. And I don't think initially when I first stopped, or when I first said I was going to stop, I don't think that I thought it was going to be, I don't think I had any kind of like idea of how long that would go on for, or if it would be a forever thing, or how I was going to do it, or anything like that. I was just like, I need to stop right now. And it was one of those things that at the time I was like, okay, I'm stopping for them. Yeah. And like gradually that's become something that I do now for me. But you know, still one day at a time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because that's the thing. If you start doing it for other people, like I did that in my sort of ex-relationship. I was at the start in my head. I was like, oh, I'm just doing it for her. And the thing was that when we broke up, like obviously I wasn't just doing it for her because I kept it on. Do you know what I mean? It would have been like I'm just doing it for people, and then sort of that sort of dies off. Then you'll just go back onto doing it again. Do you know what I mean? And that was the worst thing that you can sort of do is do it for other people. You have to really sort of feed it yourself, otherwise you just won't give it 110.
Yeah, million.
Did you ever do that stage of, because I used to just give myself like limits where it'd be like, oh, I'll do it for 3 months and we'll see how it goes, or we'll do dry Jan, or that sort of thing. Did you do those kind of things?
All of those kind of things. And I did those things where it was like, okay, I can't drink wine, so I'm going to switch to spirits, or I need to drink water in between each drink, which like obviously never ever works, but like putting all of these different like control things, or like I'm only going to drink on the weekends, or I'm only going to do this on these days, or with these people, all of those things. I remember only once I tried to do dry January, and obviously I didn't last the whole of January.
It wasn't very dry.
No, it wasn't very dry. But yeah, like I it's really weird, right? Because I hadn't actually really thought about the fact that I've tried to do it other periods before actually finally getting sober. And not that long ago, I was looking through old Instagram, like DMs and pictures and stuff. And I realized there was actually chunks of time where I had like tried to do it, and it'd be like, oh my God, I'm a week sober today. And I like wanted to tell people. And yeah, I mean, I guess it'd just been a week here, a week there, but never done like longer than that.
We're just suppressing it, isn't you?
Yeah.
That's how I see dry Jan was once January's out the way and February comes about, that I'm just going to like smash the arse out of it.
Yeah, of course. And you're like fantasizing about like how wild you're going to get when that's over. And,
no, exactly. No, that's why I did like 3 months here and there, and it was more, I think that was again because of relationships, because it just got to a point, like, alcohol really affected a lot of like my relationships and ruined a lot of relationships. And I think there was points where I'd get to like a limit and the other person would be like, look, you need to fucking sort this out. Do you know what I mean? And then it'd be like, okay, I'll show you how good I am. And it's just like in the 3 months in and you're sort of like gagging to get out and about. And it was stupid, because I think you need to know when you're ready. Yeah. You know what I mean? The more you keep putting pressure on yourself to like do it every so often, then you're obviously not ready, because you still want to, as soon as that time limit's done, like you're back on it again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When did you start drinking, and sort of did you take drugs as well? Was this like, okay?
Yeah, drugs were like a big part of my story, but I guess for me it was like alcohol always came first, and then after a couple of drinks I'd be like, I'm down for whatever. Yeah. I was like, you know, things that I thought I would never touch or like were so not my vibe or whatever. If once I'd had a couple drinks, like it didn't matter what was in front of me. I was like, yeah, cool, let's go for it. But I started drinking when I was about 14. I'd started a new school, and it was completely different to the school I'd been at before. And everybody was drinking, everybody was smoking weed, everybody was drinking, and it seemed like the normal thing to do. It didn't really seem like a big deal. But I think the difference was I would drink to blackout every time and still be like, when's the next time we're doing this? Whereas I feel like other people around me would be sick or not remember parts of the night and kind of be like, okay, let's not do this again, or next time I know I'll drink less or whatever. Where I was like, no, I'm down to go again and again.
Did the blackout thing, did it stay with you throughout your drinking?
Yeah.
Like, was it something that always used to happen, or you push yourself to that limit?
Yeah. I think it's only like with other substances that blackout wouldn't happen. And it's scary, and it's weird, because it's like at the time I don't think I ever really like thought about like my own safety or like anything like that. And now like when I think about that kind of thing, I'm like, that's so terrifying. Like to not remember huge chunks of a night is like, it's really scary. But
well, the only way you do it is when you have to start puzzling stuff together, like reading up Uber receipts, or you get that dickhead mate who's like, oh, you never guess what you did last night. And it's like, just don't tell me.
Do not tell me. But it was like every morning was that. Like I'd wake up and be like, okay, cool, on my phone, and like, do I have my phone? Do I have my keys? Are they like, have I got my handbag, whatever? If I have, at what point am I going to look at my phone? Because what's someone going to say? Or like, who have I upset? Who have I got to like make it up to? All of that kind of stuff. And like the anxiety of that was actual hell. Like,
it is the worst. That's why I used to put my phone on aeroplane mode. So as when I went to bed, even if I was like coked up to my eyeballs, I'd always make sure that when I was gradually starting to settle down, I'd put like aeroplane mode on, just so, and I'd leave it for like a day. And like my mum used to always have this thing where she was just like, well, you haven't killed anyone. And I was like, well, I might have done. I don't know what happened. You sort of wake up and it's just like, why is there blood on my hands? Or oh, it's ketchup. Don't worry about it. Why do you think you pushed yourself to blackout? Like, was there stuff going on at home? Did you feel like, was it like, obviously drinking escapism and stuff, but to the point where you was like blacking out?
I think that I've just got very poor like impulse control, and I think just as a person I always have like a kind of need for more, and I feel like that's something I have to like every day like keep in check, like and I think that can be with anything, you know, like you can take away alcohol and drugs, and that could be then with shopping, or it could be with literally anything, to be honest. And it is something that then I have to like put other things in place so that I'm not just constantly wanting more of everything.
Of course.
But I think it's loads of reasons. I think at the beginning it was just a kind of, just this like need for wanting stuff, and just like that filling of void or some kind of gap. Or I don't think I was ever like an unhappy person, and nothing ever, I mean, drugs and alcohol have definitely made me unhappy in the end. But like to begin with, I don't think I was an unhappy person, and there was no kind of like trauma or anything that I'd necessarily like been through. But I feel like it was just this thing to like get out of myself. And I think as well, I always felt like everything around me was really boring. Like life was boring, that was boring, school was boring, this person was boring. And I felt like I needed something more stimulating, something more exciting. And for a long time, like alcohol and drugs did make me feel like that. It was like, I'm the wild one, I'm always out, I'm really sociable, I'm always doing stuff. And it did feel like that made, like life feel more exciting. Did
you ever get to a point though where like you were repeating the same cycle? Did you start getting bored of that because that excitement then wasn't exciting anymore?
Oh my God, 100%. There were different like things, and like the effects of stuff does start to change or wear off. And you know, from being like, I'll have a few like drinks and be funny and loud, to just being obnoxious and angry and loud, and like and start, you know, your tolerance to things builds, and stuff starts to not work in the same way. And I think as well that you start to do things, then I started to do things in a way that wasn't just like a fun, sociable way. It's like, I'm going out, so I've got to do this in order to get out the house, or you know, and like then it becomes not fun anymore.
Well, it's true. And I think, like I've said in previous videos and stuff, like I think the most exciting part of me doing drugs was picking it up. It was like getting that loot in and being like, I've got it, boys, I'm ready for this, whether you're doing a night out or whether you're going to a festival. Do you know what I mean? Knowing that you've just got all this stuff, and it was the fucking phone calls, the meeting up. Do you know what I mean? Like it just felt like, I honestly to this day, like I can't describe it. It was just this mad, just overall feeling. It was, and then once the drugs came, we started doing them, that excitement sort of lost itself. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's like, can be though with anything. Like once you, like the wanting anything is the exciting part. And then when you've got it, it's like, okay, like it's not always as exciting as this is cracked up to be.
No, exactly. Speaking of crack, did you did you ever push yourself that far, or was you just more just party drugs like coke, MDMA, pills?
I have had some wild times. No, I haven't actually smoked crack, but I've done a lot of things that like I would like never thought would happen, and situations have happened, and that I never kind of thought would.
In terms of like what you took, or situations you put yourself into?
Both, to be honest. Like things that like just such kind of dangerous situations, even people that like I never thought I'd hang around with, and you know, and like I feel like that repeated cycle of just being in places, it's like people, places and things, like they were I've lost my train of thought now, but just like not where I thought I would end up. And I feel like one drink for me could mean I'm off and it's like a crazy wild time, or it could have just been like, okay, it turns out all like not too bad, and I've managed to get home and I've managed to not lose everything. But it was like you wouldn't know which way it was going to go.
But then you do gravitate towards people that share similar interests and like we say, enablers. But in the sort of your situation, it's mad how even with your drinking, obviously you said when you're taking drugs that the blackout thing wasn't as sort of, didn't happen as much, but the fact that you're surrounding yourself with people who you don't really know and could be quite dodgy, but yet you're putting yourself in a situation knowing full well that you could black out, and then you don't know what could happen. I
don't know that there was ever that thought process though. Like I think even like kind of thinking about everything as like a almost like outsider has only happened since being sober. I feel like there was never any, like it was always just fuck it. It was never like, oh, what might happen tonight? And I think I always had the intention of like just having a nice time. But that often like wasn't actually how it turned out. But I don't think at the time I would ever think like, oh, what's going to happen? Or, oh, will this be safe or not? Or any of those kind of things. And it's funny because now I'm quite like, I want to be safe, and I'm like, I think a lot more about like my surroundings, and I think maybe that's because now I'm like hyper aware of how things can go.
And you're a mum.
Yeah.
It probably makes such a difference now, because you're obviously thinking of her as well.
Yeah,
do you know
totally,
what I mean? Like those situations, and whether she would ever be in that, God forbid she doesn't. But like, it's like, well, I would never see myself doing that. Or it's mad. But how would you say that your sort of like support network was during this? Did it come to a point, was it your family that, you know, kind of started saying to you like, you need to fucking rein it in, or was it your friends were, you know, worried about you?
So my family definitely, like, they had all, like, my family had always been like, you need to have some kind of control over this. But I think for a lot of people, like, sobriety seems like such an all or nothing. And so for a really long time, it was like, you need to try this or you need to do this. And there was not much talk about like cutting it out completely for a long time. It was more about like how I can get a handle on it. With friends, it's funny because I would have so many different like pockets of groups of friends. I could go out with someone on a Monday night and they'd be like, wow, that was wild. But they wouldn't know that I was also going out with a different group on a Tuesday, a different group on a Wednesday. So when I fully got sober, there were a lot of my friends who I think maybe were like, oh, like, is that forever? Like, you just need a break. Like, they knew it was bad, and they knew that I would go really extreme and be like super volatile and upset and angry and stuff when I was drinking. But I think maybe they didn't know the real severity of it. But no, my family, like, for a long time were like, this has got to like change. Yeah.
Do you feel like you wore a lot of different masks when you was like partying? Like you could, like you said, the different groups of people. So you was like Tallulah, this person to these people, and then someone else to someone else.
No, definitely. I could like slot into any kind of group. Like, I don't know, be in all over, like, you know, different parts of London, and every night would be like a different vibe, and and all of that, like, it's so weird because, again, like, I don't think I ever gave any of it much thought. It was all like so careless and so just like, cool, what's the motive today? Like, no, like, regard for anyone else or the people I was around or anything like that.
Well, it's selfish, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you become like mad selfish, and it's just like, well, I'm just going to do what I want to do, and if it affects anyone, then so be it. Do you know what I mean? As long as I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the worst thing about it.
Totally.
But how did you go sober? Like, what was the procedures? Did you go to a rehab? Did you go to AA? Did you?
So I do AA, and at the beginning, so it was actually like a really amazing kind of like how that happened was really amazing, because there's a really close friend of mine. She's one of my best friends, but she had posted on Instagram that she was sober. And I remember seeing it and being like, how the hell has she done that? And it was at that time, I didn't know her super well. We'd like met maybe a handful of times, and we'd drunk together those times and like partied together. And I messaged her and I was like, how have you done it? And she was like, look, let's meet for coffee and let's chat and whatever. And she took me to a meeting, and and since then, that was, August will be 4 years ago. And she's now one of my best friends. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast with you, because I feel like, you know, there are so many different ways to do it, to be sober. And I think for everybody, their experience and their journey has to, you know, be their own way. But I think for me, seeing her online on that day when I needed to, talking about it, I was just like, okay, like, I need to speak to her. I need help. And it was like, okay, there's someone I can actually reach out to. And there's somebody who looks like they're having a good time, is like the same age as me, is like the kind of person I would hang out with either way, you know. And I felt like if I hadn't seen her, maybe I would have thought, oh, it's just like all old men. You know.
Well, that's what you think as soon as anyone mentions AA. It's like, it's just going to be full of old 60-year-old blokes who like have hit rock bottom, lost everything, got nothing going for them. But I didn't do AA, but at some point I might do it, because there's like, you'll understand this completely, there's so many challenges when you go sober, and I'm going through a lot of emotions and I'm feeling a lot of stuff. And I said to my mum the other day, Trace, I said, like, I feel like I'm in someone else's body. Like, I've woken up and I'm in someone else's body. And it's like you get a bit of memory fog and you kind of remember certain things, like obviously your day-to-day, like your job and stuff like that. But because it's still the same kind of lifestyle which I had when I was drinking, and it's such a weird feeling, like I feel like I need to be doing more. There's like other ways I should be looking at things, or you start questioning like your friends, or you start questioning like your day-to-day, or do you know what I mean? Like, did you ever feel like that?
I did. It was a weird time when I got sober because it was then lockdown.
Okay.
So it was tough. It was actually like quite a blessing.
How was it?
Because I was just in the house and just around family and my fiance, and so we didn't have I didn't have to be anywhere. I didn't have to I literally couldn't go out. And so at the beginning actually of lockdown, the first lockdown I was drinking, and that was tough. But then after that, it was like I didn't have. Well, there was a lot less options, basically. And so that made it easier. And I wasn't working at the time. So I was literally just like, all I can do is focus on being sober. I don't have to. It was actually one of the first times as well. I didn't have to like prove to anyone that I was anything or be successful or any of those things. I could just be like, right, I'm going to just work on being sober. And then even when all of those like restrictions and stuff lifted, I really didn't go out. Like I didn't feel like safe necessarily to be in a club or to like be at someone's birthday. Or,
was this due to COVID, or was this just in case?
No, this was because of I didn't feel like I could stay sober if I was there. And so then for a long time I'd take my husband or my sister or like a friend that I knew would like hold me accountable like to those places with me. And then I guess like gradually now I'm like, oh, who wants to go clubbing? I literally can't think of anything worse. But yeah, for a long time I just was like, I'm not doing any of that stuff just to make sure I stayed away from it. And I've changed a lot of like friendships, and I really don't have the same life that I did then. I've really kind of like worked on creating a different life and like I guess enjoy different things now, and
But the way you look at it as well, like we were just saying about hanging around with different pockets of people and wearing different masks, was that actually real life? Do you know what I mean? Was that your real self? And like now it's like, okay, cool, this is like who I actually am and what I'm actually, my day-to-day is and what I should be doing. Yeah,
totally. Like I feel like there was a long period when I had got sober, I was like, am I, like, I had been this like crazy outgoing, like super loud, got to be like the center of attention person, and now like I really don't think I'm that person. Like I'm not, I don't want to be center of attention anymore. I still am outgoing and loud and stuff, but I'm not like this person who's got to be at the forefront of every conversation and it took me like a long time to like work out who I was in that time, and like I guess like I had to like go back to basics. Like what do I like? What do I actually want to wear? What do I actually want to do with my time? And I think that took like quite a long time.
Well, you feel like you've missed like a big timeline of like, do you know what I mean, your life in terms of like what mine was like, what, 15, 16 years? Do you know what I mean? It was probably something similar. And it is like retracing your steps again. So I've suffered really bad with body dysmorphia, and like I was quite fat when I was younger, and because I had those years between like 17 to like 32, 33 that I was drinking, that kind of all got shoved to the back. And as soon as sobriety's come over, like I still feel like I'm that fat kid. I feel like I'm reliving that again. Do you know what I mean? With like the confidence, with feeling the way I am. Do you know what I mean? And like accepting me for me. So that's kind of a weird phase that I'm in at the moment.
Well, they say like when you get sober, it's like you're thawing out, like everything's got to like then cut, all the stuff that you've like been drinking on or using on or whatever, like has got to then like come out. And it is then about like sitting in those emotions that you can't then go, all right, I don't want to deal with this emotion, I'm gonna go out. It's like, okay, I'm in it, I've got to feel it, I've got to ride it.
Yeah, it's like a fucking dam of water, and you're just taking your finger out the hole, and it's like, bosh, it's just having it away.
Yeah.
So you work in music.
Yeah.
What kind of, did that sort of influence your drug taking, your drinking? Was it quite a part of like the culture in terms of like networking and being here, there and everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, definitely as an artist, it was like, that was like a massive part of it.
Yeah.
And I think also it was just like part of my identity. So I think it was something that I like had wrapped up into this is the type of artist I am, and also this is what I do. And obviously, like, it is around everywhere. You know, you're going to events, and people aren't like, I guess it's, you know, like any creative job is not like any other job. No. Where like, if you work in another job, you wouldn't just openly be like to your boss or your colleagues like, what we like.
Get bagging.
Yeah, that would never happen. Whereas like, obviously in the creative industries, like that's pretty common. It's funny though, because like you were saying about, you attracting those kind of people around you. Like I remember there was a period of time where I felt like, oh, why is it me that's always around these people? And I really like felt like almost as if like those people had seeked me out and it was their fault, and like I could see other artists that wasn't happening to them, and they weren't doing this and that with those people, and I felt like, yeah, as if like I'd been plucked and chosen to be led down the wrong path. And it wasn't until becoming sober that I was like, no, that was me, like putting myself in those situations and me seeking out those people. And you know, and again, like I was saying, creative jobs or not, like I think if you're that way inclined, like in whatever job you're doing, like you're going to find those people.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's like even when, like a stupid example, but if you go on holiday, like the amount of times I used to chase for gear, but you'd always find it. Do you know what I mean? They always like find you. And it's like, oh, well, they must have known that I was looking for it. It's like, no, you was asking every prick in the fucking bar who's got any bag on them. Did you find that when you was like an artist, did you become like, I don't want to say like reliant, but did it help you with like your creative process of like when you was making music, or was it you not that sort of way inclined?
Do you know what? I think that the situations I would get in all the time. So like my life was one of those ones where like anything that's happened, I'd then tell my friends, they'd be like, oh my God. Or like if I'd been out, they'd be like, what happened? Like there'd always be a crazy, crazy story. And so those crazy stories would then be used in music and creating stuff. Like if I was gonna write a song now, like it would just have to be like a nice happy love song. Like
me and my baby on the bus.
It would, just like nursery rhymes or something. But like that was all fueled by that kind of stuff. And like I think, that was actually a massive part of my personality. The thing of like, oh, something crazy has always happened to Tallulah.
Did you feel pressure on you though? Did that, because you was then that guy who had the stories, like to then be that guy? I did
afterwards.
Yeah.
I like, when I first stopped and drinking and got sober, like then I did feel like, oh my God, I'm so boring. And now I don't feel like that. Yeah. Even though I probably am quite boring. But, you know, it's just, now I kind of think of it as it's just different. You know, like I don't have a wild story to tell you, but I've got nice things to share, you know.
Wholesome stuff.
Totally.
Actual
life stuff. But there was that period in between that where I was just like, oh my God, like I've got nothing to talk about, I'm so boring. And in social situations actually, for a long time I would feel really like stuck, like I don't know what to say, I didn't know how to have conversation, like I just
it's foreign.
Whereas like now I'd say I'm actually better at doing that than I was when I was drinking anyway. But that has taken a long time.
Yeah, of course. It's like retraining yourself all over again. The social skills. How did you, would you say there's help within the music industry for people who are like suffering with like addiction and drugs and alcohol, or do you think it's sort of brushed aside?
I think there might be, but like it wasn't something that at the time I wasn't.
You wasn't seeking it?
No, I wasn't. And like, you know, there might well be, and I'm sure within, you know, different management companies and labels and stuff that though, you know, I guess it's a person to person type thing. But I definitely think more people talking about it on social media, on podcasts, on things like that is like huge. And like, I think that's an invaluable thing. Like seeing that other people can do life sober is like, okay, cool. If they can do it, like why can't I do it as well? And hearing other people's stories, you know, like if you hear someone and you relate to it, or even you're like, whoa, they sound worse than me, or whatever it is, you're like, okay, maybe it's achievable.
Yeah, it's like you're doing that thing, because you're doing that thing like even when you're sober, and you're sort of saying about stories and stuff like that, but like that's how I used to be when I was taking drugs as well, because you'll be like, oh, so-and-so does it like 4 times a week, I've only done it twice, so clearly I'm all right. Do you know what I mean? I'm healthy, I'm all good.
Yeah.
Do you, like when you went sober though, was it quite a shock to you with the amount of people that are sober within the industry? Did you start finding out more of people doing it? You was like, fucking hell, I never knew. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And more people, I think even now, like more and more people are becoming sober. But no, definitely I was like, oh, I didn't realise they were. And I think as well, then you like, you do all like, almost instantly feel like a connection to those people. Sure. And I think that's really nice. Like knowing that instantly you're like, okay, cool. Like
it's like a safe space.
Yeah,
do you know
totally.
what I mean? You can actually chat about stuff, and not that you sit there doing a fucking top trumps of stories. But like, well, I did this and you did that. But it does make it a lot easier for the conversation to flow. And I think sometimes it's like the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And you kind of wanted to start discussing it, but it's like anything. It's like talking about anything with addiction. Like it's that icebreaker, and then it's like, oh, thank fuck, now I can talk about this, and I feel comfortable. Like that's almost how it feels in AA. Or am I wrong there? Like when you hear other people talking, so I'm guessing you don't have to talk straight away when you attend. It's like I'm just going for what I've seen on television. Like
and it's funny actually, because one of the principles are that it's not supposed to be on television or like advertised, or it's like a you want people to see how you're getting on kind of thing, rather than you like promoting it. But yeah, people do share their stories, and then if you want to talk or if you want to share back, you can.
How was that for you when you first started going? Did it take you a while to sort of
like when I first got sober, all I would do every time I opened my mouth to talk about anything would just cry. I'd just cry.
Really?
Yeah, like I think it was just so intense, and like you said, like they're like full on like floodgates. Like I just would like cry every time I like opened my mouth, or every time anyone was like super nice or anything like that. I'd be like, oh. But I think that's why, because I've never like really spoken about being sober like to a lot of people, and that's why I wanted to do this, was just because I feel like if there's anyone that then like needs it,
for sure,
then that's and that's what AA is like. It doesn't matter how many times you or any 12-step recovery. There's NA, there's CA, there's all of them. But it doesn't matter how many times you go out and come back. There's always people there that are like willing to like love you until you're ready to like love yourself again, which is really beautiful.
That's what you need sometimes. It's like you just need someone just put their arm around you and
totally.
Be like, it's gonna be all right. Like I'm not here to judge you. Just we're here if you want to talk about
and
stuff.
That's exactly what it's like, and you can have a cup of tea.
Amazing. So biscuits. So I'll come away with diabetes. Another problem. What's like the main challenges that you faced when you went sober?
I think the identity stuff. Like I remember my first actual birthday when I got sober, people had posted like happy birthday things on Instagram and stuff, and all of them were me out and me like out of it, and just like real like party pictures or like holiday ones, and just like not me sober.
Yeah.
And I really felt like, that's everyone who's like posted stuff, like all my good friends, like that's what they've got of me. And like it just didn't feel like that's who I was then, because by that point I'd been sober like nearly 6 months or something. And I just felt like really just didn't know who I was. And I remember I had no idea how to celebrate my birthday. I was like, what am I supposed to do? And in the end I'd like cancelled it all and been like, I can't do it. And it wasn't until then the following year that I actually had like a nice birthday and did stuff and whatever. But so that was a massive thing, just like my general identity. Also, I guess like going out and being social still, and like knowing what I felt like comfortable to do and what I didn't. Like I remember the first time I went for a meal, at a friend's birthday, and I'd gone like on my own, and it was like, you know, a chilled thing, and I knew a lot of people there, but like I was down in water on the table just because I didn't know what to do with my hands. I felt so awkward. And so all of those kind of things, just like like feeling awkward, not being comfortable, not knowing what to do with myself. I mean, I still move my hands around all the time, but like just not knowing what to do with myself. Yeah.
You sort of feel like frozen sometimes. Even when in the social situations, it's a case of you find yourself like, what am I doing? Do you know what I mean? Like standing there like, hello, yeah, okay. Like just, but then like no conversation, none. I sometimes take myself off. Yeah. Like, I have to go and sit in another room. Like, I remember being at Jack's over Christmas and it was like, there was just too much going on in the kitchen. So I went and sat on my own in the front room. But like, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I just need to figure out what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, just stay away from it.
Yeah. You know what though, like genuinely I can say, like, all of that awkwardness and all of that like not knowing what to do with myself, that has gone. And obviously, you know, like I said at the beginning, it is one day at a time, but I mean, it is, each of those days like has amounted to like being able to go into a situation and feel comfortable. And you know, now that I can leave at whatever time, you know, or you don't have to be a part of something, or you can go off into another room. But like, I feel like now, like I do feel comfortable. I don't feel awkward anymore, which is amazing.
Well, there was that pressure, I suppose, because when you used to drink, you was like that party animal, and then the thought of you leaving somewhere after an hour of being there, that's still in your head. Early on in your sobriety, so you must have been thinking, I need to at least stay for like another couple of hours.
Yeah, so that people don't think, now she's boring. And
she doesn't want to know us anymore.
Totally.
Did you like, obviously, sorry to cut you off, did you find that your friendship groups completely changed? Like, was it like starting all over again and having to like pick who you want to be associated with and hang around with?
On my core, like best friends, they've stayed the same. But like any of those like big groups, I just don't speak to any of those people anymore. And like there was a lot of friends that I don't see or you know I haven't seen since becoming sober because they were just friends to party with. But all my best friends have stayed the same, and then I've got other very close friends now that are also sober. So really I would say that I've got less like overall friends, but more super close friends. More friends that if I needed something I could call.
Yeah, of course.
And less friends that would want to go to a club.
That's like an age thing though as well. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm the same. We can count them on one hand, but like I always sort of put my friendships sort of hierarchy by someone that I could ring up when I'm down, or like I need them to be there, or do you know what I mean? You can just rely on them for that. What do you do on like when you're sort of in the early stages, even now, like when you're feeling a bit like I don't know, like you sort of fancy the idea of a drink, or do you know what I mean? Like you still get those feelings now, or was that just early on in your sobriety?
I would say that was more early on in sobriety. Like I don't really now, but I think now it's more like like they say in the fellowship, like you came for your drinking, but you stay for your thinking, and like that is like where I'm like very much at now. Like I don't often think about drinking, but my head can still be like a crazy place. So what I'll usually do is speak to other sober people and like run it by them, and then usually they'll rein me in or like put me in check.
That's good though that you've got that. Do you know what I mean? You've got that support network where you can literally just have those honest conversations with people and be like, look, I'm feeling a bit of an urge now, like what should I do? And at the beginning, you know, like now I don't smoke, I actually don't smoke or drink any caffeine. Wow. But at the beginning, oh my God, like cigarettes and coffee, like non-stop. That's like the vape. I literally carry that fucking thing like it is a dummy. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, and I can't find it. I'm like, fuck, where is it? Like, just like lifting fucking sofas up and trying to find it. But it's, I don't want it to be, but that does feel like it's like my new addiction. But I think it's okay to have something else, you know, like what doesn't kill you the quickest. Just get rid of them like in order. But I mean, I would be one angry arsehole. Like, if I like literally cut out everything, that'd be horrible. Did you just go like completely cold turkey? With alcohol? Yeah, did you just stop straight away and that was it? Yeah. How was that, going from sort of one extremity to another?
weird, and my physical body, like I was not well for a little while. But I even with that, like I think like I was so in like another world and like so just like clinging on every day that like I didn't really think about that at the time. But yeah, like I was not very well for a little while, and then gradually, you know, you just become healthy again. Yeah.
You can feel it. Do you know
Oh
what I mean?
my God,
Even when
yeah.
people are like, you look so radiant. And I'm like, oh, really? Water and no alcohol, no drugs.
Yeah.
With your daughter, so I sort of speaking to parents, how would you sort of educate her growing up and sort of, you know, obviously because you're both sober, both parents sober, but, you know, obviously you don't want to sometimes force it down kids' throats of like, the drink's the devil, this, that. How would you go about doing that? How would you teach her, and how would you make sure that she was safe if she did choose to drink?
Yeah, I think number one, like create a relationship where she can always come to me, you know, where rather than ever think like, oh, what's my mum going to say? She will hopefully grow up thinking my mum will know what to do. I guess that's like my biggest hope. But I think also, you know, that for some people, drugs and alcohol, well, particularly alcohol, can be okay. They can drink and they can have, you know, just like a wine with dinner or just a drink at Christmas or whatever. And that's amazing. And you know, she may be one of those, hopefully will be one of those people. But I think it's just about explaining that that's not everyone's kind of journey. And for some people, they can't do it safely, and you're not really going to know if you can do that safely or not until you've tried. But if you can't, that's okay, and life's still great without those things. I think it's difficult because, like, socially, that is such a, you know, as a society, like we go to a funeral and drink, go to a wedding and drink. It's a birthday, you get drunk. It's just so there for everything, every celebration or grief or anything. So I think also like teaching her to like be able to be in certain scenarios without needing something.
Yeah.
But I'm just hoping this is like not cool.
Yeah, I don't think it is for kids now.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's becoming less
kids
like...
are smoking more weed and vaping now. Do you know what I mean?
No, we want us to do nothing.
But yeah, the drinking culture just seems to have just plummeted.
Yeah.
You know, especially I suppose the mid-20s or sort of early 20s onwards, it still is, but those are like the older teenagers. They just don't seem bothered by it anymore, which is great. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like things are working and they're not sort of feeling it. But they're just lucky as well in the case that they've got so many 0%
I know,
drinks now.
and there's like adverts on TV now for like 0% stuff, and it is way more like normal that you would go out with a group of people. I went for dinner the other day, a birthday dinner, and I was the only person there who's like actually sober, and nobody drunk.
Really?
Yeah, there was a few mums there, and then like it was a really like an early dinner, but nobody was drinking, and it was amazing. Like it was. Yeah, like, and most of those people there, it wasn't that they are sober or that they have any kind of issue whatsoever. It was just like they didn't fancy drinking that night. And I feel like more and more situations like that people realise they don't have to do it, which is really cool.
I don't know how parents do it. Like parents that drink and they wake up with a hangover and a screaming child, and you're like, oh God, like what? Do you know what I mean?
Wild.
Some of them going in at like the early hours of the morning, and then they've got to be up at like 5 o'clock.
No.
Go swimming lessons. Or something like that. I'm just like, I could not do that. Definitely not.
No, absolutely not.
How? What would you say to people that are sort of looking to go sober or they're in the early stages of their sobriety? What sort of techniques could you use to sort of like, you know, if they want to sort of listen up and like try AA, or if they want to try this, that and the other, what would you suggest? And how would you go about telling other people if you have got a problem? Yeah,
I think like regardless of how you do it, you know, like I think finding other people that are also sober is like so beneficial. So I'd say like reach out, and I think even if you think, oh, you don't really know that person or whatever, like if you just know someone that's sober, they will be willing to help you regardless of how they're doing it. Like they will, and I think that keeping it in the day and thinking of it as just one day at a time is a really easy and like comforting way to do it. You know, if you can get your head on the pillow, sober that day, amazing. You've done that day's banked, like, and you can try again the next day. And like keeping it like that, you know, like not overthinking it, not thinking about, well, what will I do in the future at my whatever, like a christening or a wedding or whatever. You don't need to think about that right now, like just keeping it a day at a time. And I think, you know, being honest, but also you don't have to like divulge everything to everybody. Like it doesn't have to be like that. If you can do that to one person, that's amazing. And you can be super honest with one person, but you don't have to, you know, go and tell everything that's happened to you to everybody. You know, you can just be honest with one person, be honest with yourself, but it doesn't have to all be at once.
No, of course. I think that's, you do put a lot of pressure at the start, because even the sort of, I know it's nice doing the whole, like, I've done 1 month, I've done 2 months, you know what I mean? But there's nothing wrong as well. I think it's like really important for people to know, like, if you fall off.
Yeah, oh my God.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's such a thing that where people are like, fuck me, like, I've ruined this is really bad. And it's just like, well, no, it's just a case of just doing it again. Do you know what I mean? If you feel ready to do it again. And I think that's one thing I think a lot of people need to understand. It's like, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But also, you'll be the same when I say this, like, it's not, going sober just doesn't sort everything out. Like, there's so many things, there's issues that people have got, and the reason why I used to do stuff and take drugs and drink was because of issues that I've got and still have, and like, having to deal with that, and, you know, whether that's going to therapy, whether it's like you said, going to AA or speaking to people, it's going sober doesn't just clean the slate, do you know what I mean? And it's a lot of, you got to do a lot of work to yourself and for yourself.
Yeah, definitely,
Well, we're going to end this, but like we end the conversations with a little thing where we ask what your zero hero is in terms of your 0% alcoholic drink, if you do have them. What is your zero hero?
So if I'm out, I'll just have like a Sprite.
Love a Sprite.
Yeah, Sprite is good.
The classic.
Yeah, it is classic. But I do like a decaf mocha. I'm so not the person I used to be.
No, it's good.
Decaf mocha.
Nice. That's your go-to if you're out and about as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
Why not?
Love your style. Tallulah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so
much. It's been a pleasure. That's the end of season 1. So like, share and follow, and I will see you for season 2. Ciao.